Right, yeah, no, lunch will knock a meeting out of my head too. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm going to share the agenda here in the chat again one last time. This is the TAG Contributor Strategy Mentoring Working Group monthly meeting, and is an official meeting of the CNCF, so it does follow the CNCF Code of Conduct, which I think we can paraphrase as be excellent to one another. And today we've got an agenda. I'm not sure. Hopefully Rian can join us a little bit later, but he does have an agenda item on the list here as well. But since we have Diane here, she and I have been working on some data analytics and research on mentoring. And Diane, if you would like to walk us through some of what you've been working on.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm now at the Director of Research and Advisory Services for a little data analytics company called Bitergia that does open source community developer data analytics. And so you can read all about that other places. But one of the things that I've been interested in is ongoing the things that the mentees in any program, but specifically this one, the Linux Foundation mentorship program, who they are, where they're going, what projects they contributed, their success rates, and the impact on projects that they've worked on, as well as whether they continued to work on those projects or they became more involved or less involved or left, and trying to track all of that. And it turned out that Nate was also interested in that and had data. And I have copious amounts of data. So I'm going to share my screen with that little introduction. And let me see if I can figure out how to do that in Zoom, because, hey, I am a Google person. Share screen. And I'm going to just share my desktop. And if you see something you shouldn't, hopefully you won't, because I think I hit everything. All right, you should be looking at this. I'll move this out of the way. And so a little bit about this stuff. So view slideshow. So this is basically a couple months worth of going on vacation, talking with Nate, and looking at the data sets that he shared with me from his work with the Linux Foundation's mentees. And if you've seen these things before, it's probably because you've wandered across the Linux Foundation mentorship page or participated, hopefully, because this is the mentorship working group. And what I've tried to do here, and I'm not sure if this menu bar is showing up or not showing up on my screen, is there's a wonderful spreadsheet that has the mentoring stats overview that Nate works from, plus a whole lot of lists of folks who have participated in those things, and take those and basically create a dashboard, if you will, analytics one, similar to something that I would use for an open source project, whether it's MicroRocks, Kubescape, Kubernetes itself, or something to look at who's participating from that cohort and where they are and how long they lasted and what projects they worked on. So I'm just going to walk through quickly a couple of them. But first, I wanted to say I've only done 2 years worth of cohorts, spring, summer, and fall, and I will rename all of my titles now that we've gone to term 1, term 2, and term 3. And then I still have to do the 2020 and 2023 groups. And then I'll probably pull in the Google Summer of Code, the Google Docs stuff, and the outreachy stuff, and a few others that have fallen around that we found out about that are under Nate's bailiwick. And just try and figure out some common interesting insights into these things with Nate. And we're going to put that together as a presentation in the there. So I'm just going to escape out of here if I can. Escape. And nope, that's not the end of the thing. So as I said, he had his wonderful spreadsheet here. And you can see there are lots of other groups. I'm concentrating on these LFX ones here first. And the 2020 ones are a little flakier, the data set. They were less thorough in their stuff, so it's taken a little bit of doing. So what I've put together is a couple of things. So a cohort dashboard for each of them, grouping them by their names and show off what they worked on and be able to track them. And then you can go down in and filter them in to this. So I'm just going to show you a little bit. I don't want to take up the whole meeting about what this looks like. And I'm going to go into one, give it a second because I'm on wimpy Wi-Fi. And so this one is till September 1st. So this is 5 years ago till September 1st. I picked a date in there, but you can control this however you want. And so what it does for me is it tells me of that cohort, and there's a whole bunch of them in here. And this first dashboard is really just Git contributors. It doesn't include the people who do comments or issues and stuff. We just wanted to do the raw ones who made commits and do the count on that. And you'll see there's a few of them whose affiliations are unknown, mostly because they didn't put it on their GitHub profile, which may be one of the key first findings is success rates for getting a job after your mentorship is have a good GitHub and LinkedIn profile, because that way people can find you. Sometimes people don't want to be found. So that's one of the things we're looking at. And the other thing, and there's a lot you can drill down. Most of the stuff that comes default with my dashboards are really project centric as opposed to cohort centric. We can pull down like all the AccuNocs or all the unknowns for any project in the CNCF. But the affiliations is the one that I've been looking at a lot lately, because it also pulls in, if it's still the circle still going around the drain, it also pulls in the issues in the comments, because it turns out a lot of the mentees didn't make any, oops, I didn't pin it. Sorry, folks. I'm going to go back one. I have to pin it across all apps and go back into community affiliations. And you can see there's a lot of stuff here, but most of the work that we've been doing is trying to, with each of these cohorts, clean them up. So there are fewer unknowns in their organizations. And I have a little quirk in my roll up here. Each of these things, there's 3 data sources here. One is Git straight up, GitHub issues and GitHub comments. And that's why there's 3 that show up for here. And everybody has a common UUID in our data set. And I need to add that column here. Then they'll all just roll up into one nice one. But it's this is kind of the baseline stuff that we need in order to start looking at them over time. I said one other thing that we were probably going to do is for each of these mentees add in, during the time period that they were an LFX mentee, add that in our database that they were part of that organization. Then we can just pull up everybody by LFX mentee. But it's a pretty interesting way of looking at the data and finding out where they are now. I can also go back in time and look, like, so if their contribution today is with some place called Phaedra, but when they were participating, I can go back to that time and see whether they were at a university or another company. So their contributions are tracked and their participation is tracked at the time of. So it's not all attributed to their current employer, for example.
And just an interjection at this point, just to be clear, all of this data is being collected by from publicly available sources. So yes, we do have their name, but that is a part of the LFX mentorship page that we're pulling some of that information from. So just to sort of be clear about that type of information.
Yeah. So it's a pretty powerful tool. And if we go back to the first one that we did, what's interesting, there's a couple. So what I'm trying to show today is a little bit of what you can do it, so that as Nate and I tease out the questions we want to ask, or the questions you might want to ask of these folks, we have the data set and we can start doing queries on it based on time series or projects that they participated in. If I go back to, let me see, I got this pinned. Do I have this pinned? Yes, I have it pinned. Oops, that's what I wanted. There's this weird thing about Zoom that I don't use too often. One of the things
For that, Ali, do you have a question?
Maybe you were gonna also already talk about that, but if you're asking us what kind of questions we could have, the first question that I could have is retention.
Yes,
Like,
that's actually kind of where I was going next.
okay, yeah.
Because one of the things that I'm very curious about, because everyone who's leading any sort of project is resource shy, shall we say, or constrained. And if someone participates in a project, we want to know if they continue to after they left, or if they moved on to another project, bonus, and stayed in there. But yes, the retention rate within the project. And there's two other things that I've been thinking about is because a lot of, in my previous incantation at Red Hat, one of the things was growing more people who had the skill sets. Did they get hired by a CNCF member organization, or did they go to another organization? And some of these names are not familiar to me. Is where these people ended up. One of them, at least. And is that a new potential member organization? Is that a deployment of Kubernetes or Istio that we did not know about, right? So those kinds of questions, yes, it does show us that. So that's one of the things that we're looking forward to teasing out in these groups is what's the retention rate by project? Did they move into continued to work in open source within the CNCF? And there are a few people, and Nate, we won't name names, who have dropped out of the world completely. Like one in particular that drove me crazy for a couple of days trying to figure out why I couldn't get their stuff to show up. And they basically deleted their presence off the out of Git, even though they were in the mentorship list. So there's little quirks and quarks like that to figure out. And that's an interesting data point to me. What caused them to want to delete everything off the face of the internet about themselves, and hopefully they didn't pass away, fingers crossed. But there's a few anomalies that come out of this too, and it also allows us to do some outreach, hopefully in the not too distant future, to these folks to find out about what they thought, the ones who were more successful or less successful, what some of the best practices. But yeah, my first one's going to be update your GitHub profile, because that became very obvious that the people who are still unknown, when you go over to the LinkedIn API, they were still either in students or not gainfully employed yet. So GitHub profile.
And related to retention, I think that this can also help us surface who has gone through and closed the loop, as it were, who started off as a mentee, who became potentially a maintainer, and then again became a mentor at the end of the day. So I mean, there's all sorts of questions I think that we can ask of this data set. And as we go through this, I think that this is part of the reason we wanted to show you folks, is because we want those. We have an idea of what we want to know, Diane and I, but I think that there are other questions that there are other queries we can make, and so I'm happy for those.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing, and just I can show you a little bit of the filtering. Basically, this is a UUID because that person had there were multiple people with the same name. So like Joe Smith is in the database 20 times. So each of these, it's just a query to do the filtering. And you can also always do something like add. So add a project. And I'm going to pick one that won't disappear all the day. And let's say the project is we just want to look at the people who went to Meshery. Yeah. And then you have the 10 dudes, probably, folks. that worked on Meshery. So you can just do filtering like that. So like, and isn't Meshery the one that Lee Calcott is behind the scenes doing all the mentoring? He's pretty successful mentor. So, you know, and I don't know these people. I didn't know much about the mentoring project. I probably now knew way more than I want to about the Linux Foundation mentoring. But that's the beauty of this, is that as long as you have context and good data, and it's this particular data set is all GitHub related. We didn't pull in any mailing lists or Slack or anything else to this, but you know, you can enrich the data with things like that as well as time goes on, if you had a mailing list for all the mentees or something else. But that's my 2 cents. And if you have any questions, I'll stop the share now and ask me. Otherwise, send them to Nate and me, mostly Nate, and he'll coordinate adding them into this, because we have a talk hopefully coming up either at the Member Summit or Open Source Summit in Tokyo on this topic. And
hopefully we find out today about the Member Summit, and I think we find out whether or not we have OSS Japan in a couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll get to talk to more than just the 6 of us about this at some point. But this is something that we've been working on and are intrigued by, and so
the one other thing that's really handy about this is it's not it's ecosystem based. So I can show any project that's in the CNCF plus a few others that I've added into the data lake. So we can see the sort of the network effect. So the thing, and I didn't show that because it takes more time, but we can take one of these folks and see all of the projects that they're connected to, or a cohort, and all of the projects that cohort worked on and touched, and in a nice big network analysis diagram too, which is really kind of interesting to see how in the retention thing, how people move into other projects, and as we call it, developer migration from the project that they started on and where they went and who they're connected to.
And again, the other thing that I'm hoping is that we can continue this statistical analysis over time, helping us understand some of the decisions that we make around our programs. Like right now, we've got a goal of 150 mentees to go through all of our programs this year. I'm hoping to increase that by a few next year, but I think that it might be a reasonable goal to say, okay, can we aim for 200? And can this data help us understand our program enough to help it scale in different ways? So as we make tweaks and shifts, we can see the results of those updates and changes. So I'm hoping that this becomes a sort of a regular, not just a contribution, but I'm hoping that this becomes a tool that we can use as a working group to make mentorship program decisions. Ali?
Is the dashboard something public that we can also play with?
Well,
Or at least or read-only view or something like that? No.
not yet.
Okay.
It is a data set that is, it's the cloud data set that's a Bitergia private data set, because it's huge. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
it's all
okay.
yeah. But I'm working on getting Nate access to it so that he can use it so he's not generating that spreadsheet from nothing again, or from memory. But it also, you're at Red Hat. Red Hat has access to it. So because your client's at Bitergia, unbeknownst to you, but talk to me later. Yeah. It's what I used at Red Hat for 10 years. So there you go.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And separately and offline, that might be a discussion that we need to have with but that's beyond the scope of this particular meeting and crew potentially. So
the thing is, I can publish the visualizations, and you can embed them in any report or anything like that, as well as I can download all the data, all the reports as CSV files and share them with anybody here. So
and that's sort of how we've been working is we are planning on writing, regardless of whether or not we get accepted for these talks. I am hoping to write a paper on this, and sort of include that, package that as a report that we might be able to not only share with this working group, but also the computer strategy folks, potentially the TOC, potentially the CNCF governing board, and so on and so forth. We've got a lot of people are looking to understand and see how the mentorship program is running at the CNCF, and there's been a big push to sort of tout it more, like make it more visible at things like KubeCon keynotes and such like that. And I'm hoping that this type of work will help fill that niche as well. So yeah, so any other questions for Diana or I on this?
Hey, Rian.
Hi, sorry for being late. And the little bit that I saw, this is impressive. Well done.
Nate's been giving me the data, and that's the feeding program. So.
Beautiful work. Thanks.
Yeah, it looks great. And I'm excited about anything that's going to help improve maintainer recognition and grow contributors. So this is good to see. I know there's a bunch of other LFX tools out there that are underway in some of their programs, like Zero to Merge, that I'd love to see kind of an overall view into, but yeah, down the road. But I'm excited about this, that we're tracking at least here and getting that.
That's actually the Zero to Merge program was one the other day. Nate and I bumped into someone in another project that I was working on, who was that. And so I came to Nate's like, hey, he's not in your list of groups. And it made us realize and recognize that there's a lot of other silos of CNCF that are doing mentorship and apprenticeship programs. So hopefully, as we grow this, as we get it right for just the LFX mentees, we can add all the other guys in and showcase that. So
and right now, actually, I'd say it's good. It's potentially worth noting that this isn't LFX wide currently. It's the CNCF portion of the LFX. Excuse me. And like you called out, we will probably be adding the Google Summer of Code stuff, the Google Season of Docs, as well as the outreachy stuff. Those are a bunch much smaller programs for us, but I think that potentially this is something that we could bring to the Linux Foundation, the other mentorship admins, talk with potentially the kernel, Hyperledger, et cetera, who are also running large mentorship programs, and see if we can't apply some of what we're doing here to those programs and get an even broader view of the mentorship programs across the LF, not just across the CNCF.
Yep.
But that's a bigger conversation. That's more folks.
Yeah, I'm trying just to focus on figuring out this, and then see if we can extend it so we can scale Nate's work, and scale Nate.
Okay, so thank you so much for presenting that and showing, walking us through that. Just looking at time, probably we should continue through our agenda here. Rian, I moved your comment up a little bit in the agenda. Would you like to talk through an offer to help? I think you are muted.
You're muted.
Rian.
I am muted, which is basically saying, sorry, I'm a little confused today, and I proved it by being muted while I was saying it. I'll just find the agenda quickly. I did a bit of a run around this morning to chase in some other work. Got the link, thank you. Just opening. Yes, we had an offer to work on the questions, the FAQs, and the person did not come to the meeting. I did invite them to the meeting though, so I'll follow up with him and say, if you're interested. It seemed a little bit like one of those drive-by, I would like to help, because there wasn't much feedback after, there wasn't a discussion, which I was hoping for, and invited them here hoping to solicit a discussion. And It's a difficult topic that they picked, but I think it's fully doable by anybody that wants to get involved and get a bit of feedback from this group. So that's why I didn't want to say, no, it's too complicated. Come here, let's talk about it. And unfortunately, but I'll follow up and see if I can convince them to pick up the work and one document at a time.
I think that it is a big enough project that asking them to join this particular meeting is probably the right move. And if they're not willing to at least join the conversation, then they're probably like, I mean, that's the first step on anybody who's going to want to help on this particular issue. So I think that's the right move. I hope they do continue, and maybe we can continue in the issue, but I don't want to, like, I'll let you continue to drive that. I don't want to go into that issue and sort of, if they aren't for whatever reason interested, we don't want to have like three of us jumping in saying, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? If they aren't engaging. So, but I think that was the right move, and hopefully this is a hard time zone for folks in certain parts of the world. So hopefully they'll be able to either discuss in the issue, or maybe invite them to the mentoring Slack channel. Might be a good spot too if we want to work asynchronously with them.
Yes, good. So yeah, so from my wearing my contributor growth hat, I was hoping to grow a contributor, which there's water. Let's see if something grows.
No, it was a good thought. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. I'm going to be attending the Grace Hopper celebration, not next week, but the week after, the week of the 25th. And I'll be there both helping with the CNCF booth, but I'm also going to be there with my mentorship hat on. So I'm hoping to have discussions, sort of tout our program, and share various ways of getting started with folks when they come up and talk to me at the booth. The reason I bring it up here is because I was curious if there was anything in particular about that conference that anybody is sort of aware of that you think I should be aware of, or anything that I should be including in my discussions. Doesn't seem like, so moving on. The LFX plan mentorship for term 1 of 2024, I think we're real close. I was actually going to merge that earlier today. I think we've got a good understanding of when we want term 1 to run. I think that there is still a question about some of the timing around giving folks, like I think we gave people about 2 weeks to go through and accept their applicants. And then we're going to have a little bit of time for notifications. And there was a concern that there wasn't enough time between that notification and the start of the term. But I think we're time constrained. I don't know where else we can make some time. So given that this is fairly close to how we've run it in previous sessions, I think that what we can do is merge this one in. I'm going to be opening up the planning for term 2 again, hopefully later this afternoon. Once this one here gets merged in, I want to try and keep these things planned about a year in advance. Like if we're finishing off term 2, I'd like to be planning term 2 of the following year. And we just finished term 2 of this year, so term 1 is actually, the planning is a little bit behind. So like I said, I want to get that in there just so that people can see it as they're planning themselves into the next quarter and whatnot. So expect another issue opened with another set of suggested dates, and I appreciate all the feedback that I got on the previous one. So is there any comments or questions or concerns about that process currently? No? All right. What is this next one here? Number of mentors suggested.
Sorry, yeah. Nate, I got to drop. I'm sorry. Got to take son to soccer practice. Great to see you all.
Right on. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Talk soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
See you too. Bye.
I'm just going to open this one up because I don't remember what this. Oh, this was Ali, your comment on.
Yeah.
And so.
So
we-
remember, we once had a discussion about this because we had a, I should say, bad experience in GSOC that
No names.
yeah. That we were trying to reach one of the mentors, but we weren't able to. So and after that we thought maybe we should ask for at least 2 mentors, although this needs to be checked with Google if we are allowed to have such requests from someone who wants to mentor someone. So I think for GSOC, I saw your comment. I think for GSOC we can still try that, but I think we should check with Google first.
Yeah.
But for LFX, yeah, I don't know.
For LFX, I think we've got. It's a closer knit. Well, it's not necessarily. They're all our. All the maintainers are through our projects, but we do have it's a slightly relaxed set of deadlines, right? Like I go through and I try and make these deadlines like this planning process. I go through it, but if somebody comes to me and says, Nate, I need an extra week, very likely I'm giving it to them, right? The one thing I try not to do is I try not to go beyond the very last day of the term. And this is part of the reason I actually schedule a week for like the final evaluations are actually do a week before the end of the term, because I want, for instance, mentees to have time to write up blog articles and do all the rest of that before the end of the term, because it's still, that's still work in my opinion. And so I don't want to be asking somebody to do work after the end of the term. So that is sort of my only hard deadline. So if a mentor says to me, I need an extra week for evaluation, then I can give them that, right? But I generally won't give beyond that. But even if somebody says, hey, you know what, I know that the term is starting today, I haven't been able to make my selections yet, I'll usually let them make their selection and start the term a week late. So that being the case, I don't know that we need like for the GSOC thing, we couldn't reach a mentor, but the Google Summer of Code program is very strict with their deadlines and will actually sanction our program if we miss one. So it's much more important to be able to reach somebody in the GSOC situation than in the LFX situation. Nobody's going to be asked to leave the program because they didn't get any of their evaluation. I may be potentially annoyed and may say, hey, we need to put something in place to say, and this is and part of the reason I wanted to have this discussion as well is because there are some mentors, and I have in all my spreadsheets, like we could do a data analysis on, okay, who is consistently late with whatever it is that they're consistently late with, and maybe we need to as a part of the proposal, the project proposal process for LFX projects, maybe we say, hey, we've noticed in past that your particular project has had some timeliness issues. I don't know exactly how we would word it. Could we put some guardrails up, or is there a contingency that you could provide? Rather than saying, okay, you need to find another. I would rather have the discussion. It's like, okay, well, you've been late a lot. Maybe how do we solve that from their perspective first, and then say maybe like a second step. Okay, you need to have a mentor because you're not doing it well enough on your own. I don't know. It's a thought, and I wanted to have that conversation, but I'm not sure exactly what the answer is yet.
So for GSOC, I think we should definitely go for two mentors because of the like bad experience. And we should again, especially again for GSOC one, before we approve merge the PR for the project proposal, we should write. Please be aware that part of the mentorship program, participating in this mentorship program means, respecting the deadlines, etc., etc.
Well,
But yeah.
and for that one, for the GSOC one, it's not just that mentor that won't be able to participate next year. It's that project won't be able to participate next year. And so even if that mentor wasn't going to be the mentor next year, that whole project is out for a year, which sucks, right? So it's like I said, it's much more important on the GSOC side to get that right. So I agree there that we need to handle it a little bit differently than we have. I think even if Google, like, we have a lot of control over what gets submitted to Google. So even if Google says we can't explicitly filter on that, and I don't see why they would say that. I think that we can sort of make filtering decisions based on what we found works best. But again, it's something that we might want to update our mentoring, the mentors section of the README or our guides to say, hey, we can't. I mean, there's always going to be a situation where sometimes, like, excuse the vulgarity, sometimes shit happens. But it's one of those things where if we can have contingencies in place, it would be better if it didn't.
So I'm just writing some action items from this. First is reaching out to Google. If we can tell mentors that we need to.
I'll also be going to the mentorship summit. I might ask, like, when I have conversations with folks, I may that might be one of the questions that I have as a conversation starters. How do you manage folks, because these are all volunteers too, right? So it's one of those things where
Where and when is the mentorship summit?
Oh, that is going to be in California, the week of October 23rd, I believe. No, I'm sorry. No, that's incorrect. It's the end. It starts on Friday the 13th and goes over the weekend. So October 13th, 14th, and 15th.
And then the following week, is that when is the membership summit?
The membership summit is the week of the 23rd.
It's after.
So there's a week between them. And now that I'm looking at my that OSS CFP result is actually coming out on the day before I go to the Google Mentor Summit. I like having a calendar on my wall. This is handy.
Paper is good. Paper is good. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to keep in mind. Yeah. So maybe the other question I would have when you go there is, how is Google tracking their retention and that, if they're doing anything at all? Because I know you guys are doing some of the Google Summer of Code stuff and the Google something of docs or whatever, Summer of Docs things.
Season of Docs. Season of Docs. We're actually likely going to drop that as a mentorship thing. It's not really a mentorship program. It's more or less hire a technical writer for your project. So I think we're probably going to drop it from the mentorship part, and I might pick it up with my other hat, my Tech Docs hat, because I don't necessarily want to drop it as a supported project, but I think we need to support it in a different way than we are. There's a lot of there's a lot of overhead for. I don't think that it's as much of a bang for a buck as GSOC is. GSOC is, I think, got a really good return, but
We'll find out when we load them in and see if they've continued to edit docs for us after they've been paid for an internship.
And we can do this.
At that membership summit, maybe ask around what else other people are using to track their stuff. So, you know, what other questions should we be asking there?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
So in GSOC summit or meeting, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So about the retention, if Google is checking something, I don't think they are. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, because I don't think in the mentorship form, when you apply as a mentee, they don't ask you for your GitHub account or something, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they
So,
do. And that's something that we're starting to do now with LFX, and I've been the forms that I'm sending out to folks. I'm trying to collect that data up front. But we'll have to, like I said, I'll ask around. This is why I'm going, is to talk to other mentors and other program administrators and see what they're doing. So,
but Google asks the org during the org application, like when we apply, like for CNCF last year, like what was the retention? Like how many mentees continued to contribute?
oh, do they ask me?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that on the. I didn't see
Hey,
that on
a
the
long
intake.
time ago, like probably February or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I remember that question because that was a bit hard for me. I mean, in JBoss, in my previous GSOC org, it was a bit hard data to find, like going through each of the mentees and trying to find if they're still active in GitHub and where are they still active, etc.
Okay, so talk to me after this meeting, Ali, and I will point out who has the access to that for you for the within Red Hat.
Okay.
I'm envious. I would
Okay.
very much like that data.
It's cheap. It's cheap. We're cheap. We're academics.
That's a different conversation with a different set of folks. Okay. Is there anything else that we've missed on the agenda? Anything else that we want to discuss? Doesn't sound like I said, I'll try and get this term one thing merged in today, and I'll open up a term two planning issue shortly after, so that we can get back on track with some of that planning. We should probably also double check our calendar, make sure that it is still up to date with all of the dates that. So as when I merge that planning date. When I merge that planning PR in, I will open up another issue to update the calendar to make sure that everything is up to date, so that people are able to see the dates. I don't know how many folks actually subscribe to that calendar, but I find it helpful. So.
Yeah, I did the calendar last time, so just remind me. I can have a look and we can talk through it.
Oh.
And Diane, you can then trace how many people use the calendar and give us a graph on that.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, maybe not, but we'll see. Let's get the first foundation ones done.
Find the data.
Yeah, and grow the program. Just grow the program. That's what I want to do. More
Right.
resources to work on our projects.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Exactly.
Probably give ourselves a couple of minutes back here, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah,
Thanks. Have a good day. Cheers.
Bye.